I'm going to preface this with something that a lot of people may not agree on, but it's something that I'm starting to think, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit. But I don't know that it matters as much as people have made it out to matter as to who lines up for Georgia on the offensive side of the ball as far as the weapons go with the running backs and the wide receivers and the tight ends. And I think the last 3 weeks has been proof of that. Now, their full arsenal is obviously going to be better, but I don't know that it matters as much as people are talking about. Oh man, think about how Georgia's going to be once all of their players come back. And yes, that potential is through the roof. But look at what they've done with players without that much experience or players that are not necessarily starters. Ryan Curley here with Dog Post, bringing you all the details and some commentary on the Georgia offense today. I will say, if this is an if, it still is an if, Georgia gets all of their players back, or even just a few of them, and I'm going to go through those names here in just a second. I mean, I don't know how some of these college teams are going to be able to guard the Bulldog offense, because let's look at what they've done with specifically Brock Bowers and Adonai Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, whatever you prefer to call him, is quite impressive. For two true freshmen who have come in and have seized their opportunity to get these snaps and to get these catches and to get these possessions, and they've shown that they can be stars, and that's quite impressive. And it's kind of shown the last couple of weeks that it might not matter that much who JT Daniels, who Stetson Bennett, who Carson Beck are throwing the ball to, because they've been throwing the ball to some players who have barely played or haven't played college football, and they're still putting up a lot of points on offense. Brock Bowers is the leading receiver, never played a college down because he's a true freshman, and he has 14 catches for 203 yards. That's top 5 among tight ends in the entire country. We saw what Adonai Mitchell did in last week's game against South Carolina with 5 catches for 77 yards and that long, I want to say it was a 38-yard touchdown grab from JT Daniels on a ball that looks like it was maybe going to be overthrown. He went there and got that ball and secured it in the end zone. I mean, guys like Ladd McConkey are getting reps, and they're making plays. Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, someone who didn't play a ton last year, but obviously a great talent of his own, someone who's come in and is taking advantage of his opportunity. Jalen Johnson has got in the action. I mean, let's run through the list of guys that aren't playing. George Pickens. Arian Smith has played some, but he has gotten hurt. Darnell Washington hasn't played. Eric Gilbert hasn't played, and we really don't know if he will play. I'm not going to focus as much on him. Dominic Blaylock hasn't played, and he just suffered another injury, a hamstring this time. Don't know when he's going to finally come back. And Kearis Jackson has pretty much been a non-factor. He has 2 grabs this year, but he's been mostly just a special teams factor. He's not quite 100%. I think Kirby Smart said he's in the 90 to 95% range. That's what he said on Monday afternoon during the media availability. This offense, I just listed all those 4 and 5 star players that they're missing, and especially George Pickens. We don't know when any of them are going to come back. We just simply don't. There's speculation that Darnell Washington will be back within the next week or so. That's great. Arian Smith may play this weekend. That's great. But we don't know when some of those other players are going to come back and be 100%. And it hasn't mattered so far. Georgia's 3-0. Yes, the Clemson game was an ugly defensive battle, and I think some of that had to do with JT Daniels' injury and maybe not being able to throw downfield as successfully as they wanted him to. But you saw what they did to, yes, I understand, UAB and South Carolina, not the greatest of competitions, and they're going to start playing a little bit better defenses, and they're not going to have a crazy matchup against Vanderbilt, but what I'm saying is it maybe doesn't matter as much as we're talking about, and that we're starting to speculate, because Georgia is just loaded on the offensive side of the ball, and I haven't talked about the running backs. There are 5 running backs in that room that could start on most teams in the country, if not all. That's the reality of the situation, and they're splitting carries, they're splitting touches, they're splitting receptions, and it's not an even distribution, but Zamir White has led in carries with Milton after him and then Cook, but then they have McIntosh and Dijon Edwards behind them, and those are very capable backs. I mean, this offense is loaded, and that's what we've been saying for months. And it's only been proven by the fact that there are so many injuries. That's only further proved the case that Georgia's offense is loaded, and JT Daniels has so much talent around him, and he's JT Daniels is more than just a game manager. He can get the ball downfield. He can make good decisions. He only made one real mistake against South Carolina, and it was throwing that interception. It was just a ball that simply probably shouldn't have been thrown. But the offense, once it starts getting these weapons back, is going to be scary. But they're not in danger if these weapons don't come back, is the point I'm trying to make here. And obviously you want them to come back, especially against teams like Auburn, Arkansas, Florida that are coming up on the slate, and a potential SEC championship matchup against an Alabama or an A&M or an Ole Miss, and a potential playoff run or New Year's Six bowl game. These are obviously all guys that you want back. But Georgia is proving that they can plug and play with all of this talent that Kirby Smart and the staff has recruited. And I think that's definitely something to know. They have done nothing but prove to me, at least, that they are completely stacked on offense, and they are explosive, and they are plug and play with all of these receivers. And I know Jermaine Burton has been playing, and he's obviously a star in his own. I think he's a future NFL player. That's my opinion on him. But man, this offense is just absolutely loaded. And if guys like A.D. Mitchell and Brock Bowers are coming in like that and making an impact, then that's a problem for the rest of the SEC and the rest of the country. If Georgia can do that with true freshmen playing and a not as experienced offensive line as the last couple of years. So, and I know the defense has made quite the impact, but JT Daniels throwing for over 300 yards, and what I don't think Georgia played an amazing game. I think they played good against South Carolina, but they still won by 4 touchdowns, and that says a lot. And that's because both the offense and defense were playing great. But look at how smooth the offense was, even with guys that don't have a ton of experience, or that weren't expected to come in and play the way that they did. I think that shouldn't go unnoticed, and I honestly, it could be proven wrong. This could all be proven wrong in a few weeks if some of these players don't come back, like players like George Pickens, Darnell Washington, Dominic Blaylock, players we thought could come in and make a huge impact and obviously be important weapons for JT Daniels to be throwing to. I could be proven wrong, and of course, a defense down the road shuts down Georgia's offense. But right now, it doesn't look like that's probable. It looks like Georgia is in a plug-and-play situation with tons of stars, regardless of experience, and that's a good problem to have. A good problem to have with all those stars on one team. And this Georgia offense is starting to look scary, especially if the rest of the weapons come back. So keep checking out the site. We'll have all the coverage of the Vanderbilt game